Arigato, and welcome to week 2 of Digital Media. When you signed up to take this course, you probably anticipated analysing a bunch of media texts, events or objects, considering how they look, sound and feel, and what they mean. Yet some media scholars are less interested in the style, feel or meaning of particular media events, text or objects than in questions of how they're owned, financed, controlled and regulated. They're also interested in associated questions of how media is produced, distributed and consumed, or rather, in how the aspects of media that become visible and audible to us as users and viewers are, to borrow the words of media scholar Robert McChesney, quote, shaped by ownership, market structures, commercial support, labour practices and government policies, unquote. Media scholars who take this approach are part of a broader critical tradition known as political economy. Political economy is a particular way of thinking about economics, where questions about economic phenomena, questions of how resources are controlled and distributed, are not separated off from questions about political phenomena. As this suggests, the reason we call this framework political economy is that it recognizes that the ownership, financing, control, and regulation of resources in a given society involves political rather than merely economic factors, in that it's designed to benefit certain people over others. The political economy of the media, then, involves applying this framework to the study of media, that is, analysing the way media resources are distributed, and media's relationship to political and economic or political economic questions. The political economy of the media, of course, can vary a great deal in scale. Our focus could be very micro. We might reflect, for example, on how the ownership and organisation of a media brand like Marvel, the fact that it's a subsidiary of Walt Disney Company which has holdings across multiple media platforms, mean that the Marvel Cinematic Universe can span TV, gaming, fiction publishing, and movies. So, in this case, Marvel's ownership structure directly affects the shape of the media products associated with it. Or our focus can be very macro. We could think about how the broad economic system in which we live, capitalism, shapes the media. Under capitalism, media is rarely available for free, whether you're paying directly through subscription or ticket sales, or indirectly by selling your data or attention to platforms so that they in turn can attract advertisers. And this basic economic system has a massive influence on the kinds of audiovisual media that are made and that become available to us. For example, while we often celebrate sites like YouTube as forums for user-generated content that's not dominated by commercial interests, most of the content on the site is driven by a competition for advertiser dollars, which accrue to content producers on the basis of their channel subscriptions and video play numbers. Now, this course deals with digital, internet-enabled media specifically. So in this week's videos, when we talk about the political economy of the media, we're primarily going to be talking about the political economy of the digital and internet-enabled media in particular. However, to do this, we need to compare and contrast the political economy of network digital media with the political economy of historical or legacy media, mass broadcast media like TV, newspapers, film, books, radio, and so on, which dominated the 20th century and which still play a huge role today. To supply this point of contrast, in the remainder of this video, I'm going to outline a standard political economy approach to so-called legacy media. What kind of ownership, production, distribution, and power structures hold in legacy media according to conventional political economies of the media? First, we see a model of media ownership that was, and largely still is, hierarchical, with ownership concentrated in the hands of just a few big multinational media corporations. Today, for example, there is a small handful of global conglomerates, Time Warner News Corporation, Viacom, Disney, and Bertelsmann, that own and control the infrastructure, production bases, and distribution networks of most of the legacy media. These companies can operate economies of scale, which occur when the cost of providing an extra unit of a good or service falls as the scale of output expands, creating higher barriers to market entry and to the means of media production. This model of media ownership goes hand in hand with a model of media production, in which production is restricted to an elite few, due in part again to very high financial and social barriers to entry. In turn, we find a one-way model of media distribution, where a very small number of individuals and corporations broadcast mediated content from centres out to the millions of citizens who are primarily consumers of media rather than producers of that media. Although that's not to say that these consumers don't appropriate and circulate the media they encounter in creative and productive ways. Next, we see a model of media power, in which that power is monopolised by an elite few, and a model of media content tending more towards standardization than diversity, and that promotes individualism and political conservatism. This reading of legacy or mass media is standard among media scholars who take a political economy approach. But how has the political economy of the media changed, at least supposedly, with the rise of digital networked media? In the next video, we'll find out.